So I think everybody doesn't really need to know who John is. This is EliGE from, I almost said Liquid. Literally, that was the first thought in my head for a second. From Complexity, I know, right?
Jason
and Slasher
will be watching, okay?
And then we got Slasher yourself. From he's just the internet guy, and he goes on TV sometimes, and he has a better microphone now, so this is perfect. And then me, I'm just a fat guy that cares too much about North American Counter-Strike. All right, take it away, Slasher.
Which is not good for any of us, by the way.
Grow up.
EliGE, how you doing, bro?
Doing pretty good, not bad. I'm in Malta right now, so it's been a couple days since we've been here for like 4 or 5 days, so jet lag's pretty much gone, and we have the late NA match time slot tomorrow, so pretty good.
We are all, especially me and Eric here, we are very excited. At least for me, I am very concerned too. Okay, I am worried. We'll talk about that with you later, but I really want you guys to go all the way. Fingers crossed.
Thank you.
Of course, but we'll talk about your week in Pro League a little bit later. But to start off the show, as you mentioned, Fragadelphia, it was this past weekend, and that's why we are scuffed, because Chespuff is not here. He's still on his way home, so he won't be back till Friday, I believe.
Yeah, he ran production for all Fragadelphia, or Fragacago, I think is what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, Fragacago. Great name, guys. You guys are really
hey, it's perfect.
Really unique. Yeah, really genius there. So I was talking a little bit with you, Flom, earlier. Adrian, one of the greatest IGLs in North American history, tweeted out a great picture. I don't know who was competing. I don't know who the player is, or what team, but he was drinking a Heineken during the match, and I'm gonna hope that he won. Okay, it does not help the segment if they lost the match.
I don't know if they won or not. I'll get the picture. Yeah, I'll get the picture up here. Let me get this Discord.
Mango used to do that too, right?
Yeah, I think it's on.
Mango's the GOAT though, EliGE. Okay, the GOAT has leeway to drink about as much as he can until a certain point, and even then, he's been going healthy lately. And now he's been winning.
Fuck, I can't find it.
Since he stopped drinking as much.
God damn it, he didn't link it.
Something to think about.
Not the best for performance, for sure.
So I want to know, it doesn't help that I don't know if he won or lost. It would really help if he won the match.
I can segue this. Dude, to cut you off entirely, do you remember, EliGE, when Mosbeck was drinking at LAN at his first ever... Were you there for that ESCA LAN?
No, I didn't really play that much. Like I was playing then, but I wasn't like keeping up with the scene because I just didn't really care too much. But I knew that guy, everyone just thought he cheated. That's all I knew about Mosbeck.
So this theory's been tested many years ago, Slasher. There's a player named Mosbeck. Online, he was an absolute demon. Oh, well, there he goes again. I'll still continue anyway. But he's an absolute demon. Absolute. And he goes to his first LAN event, and he just was plowing beers because he was so nervous, apparently. And he posted the absolute worst rating at the event, and he did that multiple times, and he never got over it at any point in time. So I can say drinking beer at LAN, or whatever the beverage is, whatever the brand is not going to pay off pretty well. I did see, though, that Nouns won with Eric, which is pretty sick. I was super happy to see them. For people that haven't kept up with Tier 2 North American Counter-Strike, Nouns has had quite the problem of finishing finals. They basically missed out on multiple events because they were unable to close out in any sort of close qualifiers. And they were right there. They usually come from the upper bracket and have to, I think it was like Liquid. I don't think they had to play you, John, but I wanted to ask you, like, have you guys scrimmed much against Nouns? Like, how do you feel about Nouns as a team? I saw like the quote from Rush where he says they feel like they have tier 1 potential. How do you feel about him? Like when you scrim them, like just from your perspective, how does it feel?
We've played them a couple times recently and like earlier in the year. I remember earlier in the year, I thought they were for sure going to qualify for the major. So I was really shocked that they didn't. And even like this last time, like I do think that we're better than them, but I don't think they're like super far off either. But I would have hoped that they were improving at a quicker pace, I guess is what I'd say. Like I would have expected them, since they were playing pretty good at the earlier parts of the year, that they would have improved a little bit more by now, is what I'd say.
Yeah, well, like when you're versing him without priming you, who feels like the most like I don't know, for lack of a better term, just next up, like somebody that when you play against him, you're like all right, like he's making some really good moves. Like you could tell that his like understanding of things, how quick he reacts to certain situations, stuff like that.
Actually, can you say that again? I actually like pinned a message in your chat.
No, it's all good.
Say that again.
No, I was saying, so when you're playing against him, like, can you name a player that you feel like is kind of like next up, or basically he kind of like stands out maybe a little bit more than the rest?
On nouns or just like in NA?
Nouns.
Trying to think. I mean, I think that George is pretty good. I think that Junior's been playing better too, but I feel like Junior still needs to like find more impact consistently. Because, I mean, honestly, I just think that he's like a save god. Like, like how PTR used to just be like a
Oh
save
yeah.
god. Like, you could not get that op out of his hands for sure. But I think that Junior, like, he does
You're
like
saying
have
America
like
doesn't need a
potential.
Jame time?
Yeah, well, no, he's good at Jame timing. Like, he's great at it. That's like I think that they have good pieces with that, and George I think that is pretty solid as a rifler as well. If I was to choose those two.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of like how I've always felt about him. I was just curious how it felt being in the server versus them from your perspective.
Do you
Yeah.
feel like currently in North America, I mean, maybe you're biased and you might think it's just you and Liquid is one tier, and then maybe you have M80 and Nouns at another tier, or do you feel like maybe M80 is with you? Do you feel like Nouns are with you? Like, where would you say is the current level between maybe the top 4 or 5 teams?
I would probably put Liquid above us, not by like too much, but by a little bit. M80 is probably like on par with us right now, and then I'd say Nouns is like a little bit lower. NRG is unfortunately a bit lower than them as well. So I'd have to see a list of the NA teams, but I think just those ones off the top of my head.
I mean, we were going to go through the RMR a little bit later. Do you feel like there's a big gap after
No,
the top 4?
I think that Liquid is like a little bit of a gap if you were to like put them against like the teams below us. I think that they have a very small gap between us and Liquid,
Okay.
just on
All right.
current form.
Yeah. Have you got a chance to play against M80 with Lake much, or is this not? Or is
No.
tomorrow going to be your first like run into them basically? I mean, obviously you
we
played them in
against them.
EWC, but
Yeah. No, we haven't played them since then. We were just like in Europe the entire time. They only were at that tournament and then they went back to NA for like a long time, and we've pretty much been in Europe for 6 weeks straight, like during that like bout. And when we were home, we weren't gonna scrim against them just because we're playing them at EPL. But yeah, we've only played that one series against them.
okay. Yeah, so you're not gonna have too strong of an opinion about M80. Yeah, because I feel like Lake's really good, but I'm trying to like figure it all out. I just don't know if like they can really replace Mulbs. Obviously, Mulbs is huge shoes to fill, so I was gonna pick your brain, but yeah, you play against them tomorrow,
Yeah.
so it makes sense you haven't had many reps. How do you feel like the boot camp's been overall for you guys in Europe? You feel like it's helped you? You feel like you're still in the same spot, just kind of like not beating around the bush? How you feeling with the boot camp?
Well, we haven't necessarily had like a boot camp. Pretty much like our second season has been like 6 weeks in a row of just like tournaments, and like in between that we had like some practice time. And I'd say we started off like pretty terribly. We were playing like absolute crap. And then we got better like right before Cologne, and we were playing better during Cologne. And then we had like a little bit of practice time in between Cologne and the showdown. And I think that we were playing better, but I wouldn't have like put us as like a top 10 team like by the end of this bout. And I think that we haven't like played like too much better since then either. So I think that we've gone better since the season has started, but not at like a quick enough pace where I'd be like super comfortable with like our position right now.
Yeah. No, it feels like I'm so curious because like I know. Okay, be honest. When Halsrick slams the desk, can you like feel it? Because my man has been winding up lately. Like I've been so curious, dude. He's been winding up in some of those games, and I'm just like, I feel like he's actually been trying to keep his composure, and it's been going better sometimes. But then other times, I just feel like I'm seeing my man get a haymaker going on his desk, and I'm just like, because you guys are on other sides of each other. Like, can you hear it through like your noise, like the noise canceling and stuff, or no?
I mean, I can hear like when he's doing that stuff, but it doesn't really like affect me too much. Like it might like micro take off my focus a little bit, but you know, he wants to like, you know, calm down as well, and he's focusing on controlling his slams and stuff.
Yeah,
But it
no,
didn't really like affect me too much.
I got you. Okay.
What do you think are the biggest things that you've wanted to work on or that you've been trying to improve over boot camp? If you can, like,
Me or the team?
either, both. Maybe you first. What are you most disappointed in? You know, are you disappointed in your own play so far?
No, I think that I've been playing pretty good. I'm super confident.
All right, but I want to hear.
No, I think that's a fair way to put it.
I'm fucking carrying right now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel really good. I think that I'm playing insane. I feel like I'll just like smash anybody if I just get like one M4, just drop me a hero gun, I'll just kill him. So I feel good. I feel really good. But what I am working on is just trying to keep like a level head more and just accepting more of like our round losses that we mess up. Because we are like losing a lot more of them. So if that's gonna happen, I'm just gonna have to try to get more stable with accepting that we're gonna lose like a lot of 5v3s and 5v4s.
Special.
I'll cope for you though. Everybody's doing it. It's so in right now.
No,
it's not just you guys.
I agree. No, yeah, I was watching, and there's like a lot more teams like losing some crazy rounds. So I mean, it's just a little bit much, you know. Like the thing is like when we do it like 2 to 3 or 4 times a game, whereas like, you know, Navi might do it like once a map. Or maybe probably averaging less than once a map, if I'm being honest.
Do you attribute that to teams being sloppy, or is it maybe CS2 at all? Is it the game at all impacting some of these swings?
No, I don't think it's the game. I think it's just the natural progression of like just teams having like ups and downs. Like there's always points in time where I think the scene is like at a stronger point compared to others. Like I'd say during like the Katowice time period, I think that a lot of the teams were really, really strong. And I think like after Katowice, like 2 months after, I think that some of the teams are kind of like going down a little bit where they're not playing as well as they were during that. So I think that we're just seeing a little bit more mistakes from like the team side of things, just naturally. I think it's just natural that teams just have like ups and downs with that, and then there's just more inconsistencies.
Okay.
That's my opinion on it.
No, yeah, I think there are. I always like. It is kind of insane. I do feel like we see more of those like big round situations, like 2v4s, 2v5s. I just feel like I see them almost every single game now, even from the Navis and the G2s. Maybe not as much as you guys. I'm not trying to give you the full. I'm not gonna cope for you guys that hard, but I think it also happens more than even you maybe attributing it to. Like, man, even Navi, like a team like where I would credit them for exceptional default. Blade and Alexi got that like a well-oiled machine, and then there's times where you're just like, what just happened? You know, it's just I don't know. And you're saying it's not the game, but in a lot of ways, I do feel like, you know, I don't get to play it on LAN like you do, but it does seem like from spectating that, you know, the swing is so powerful right now, where I think that is attributing in some, even if it's a very small level, it's it's contributing a little bit. It feels like as a spectator, where I'll just see an Opera on an angle 4v2, and that's almost always the first kill back in, and you just see a guy wide swing him, put him down quick, and now they're like off to the races based on where they thought the Opera was holding.
I don't really agree. I feel like a lot of times when I see that stuff happen, it's like obvious stuff where it's like everyone in their chair just like eating popcorn at home. It's just like, what the hell is this guy doing? I feel like that's what everyone thinks, like with all of those rounds, you know, like there is very few of those rounds where it's like, damn, there's nothing we could have done. Like I feel like that's just rare where I see those rounds. Like they happen, of course, like, and you recognize them in the moment where it's like, wow, that guy just had like an incredible play. But I feel like most of the time, I just feel like people are just messing up and just things are breaking down for just other reasons. That's my opinion.
I mean, that could be a good segue into one of the topics we had. Someone did I would say, pretty misleading video of Alexi B and the difference between CS:GO and CS2 and just like the crispness of the game so far. I mean, Flom, you were talking about it earlier. The video seems pretty misleading. Okay, and I know CS2 still needs some work. From like 1 to 10, when you were talking earlier, how much do you think the swing CS2 is factoring in? I know EliGE disagrees, but how much of the game itself do you think is maybe impacting some of these rounds?
It's tricky because like that post, to just start there, the person that made that post that got like tons of views, I don't know if you got a chance to see it, John. I don't.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, the guy immediately went into the comments and then basically said it was a huge mistake in the way he tested it. So
yeah, because of the fake lag.
Yeah, because of fake lag. So it's like immediately, I don't know if I really want to give any sort of merit to the video, just because I would love to see somebody do that, but also let's run it back. But the problem is people read a title, and then if it is their viewpoint and how they feel, everybody's just like, oh yeah, I knew it. CSGO feels better, it's like, oh, this is so much better. I knew it. And I would say I think CSGO, I have not played CSGO. I haven't even like tried to play it again like some people do. I don't know if EliGE has yet, but I do remember it being more responsive at times for sure. But I don't know if it's like I feel like the game is sluggish, but it feels more like a performance issue with the overall game rather than like something inherently wrong with like subtick, or it just feels like poorly optimized is more so how I feel about it. And then back to like the swings, I still do think that the swings seem really powerful. I don't know if it's just because my bias when I like to pick up the op sometimes. It just feels so much harder. It just feels so much harder like in 2 than Go. And I wouldn't say that's necessarily a bad thing, but I don't know. I think it just for sure feels harder. I wouldn't say it's better or worse. I think it just leads to different outcomes. Also, John, are you okay? What is going on?
Thunderstorms inside.
I've been trying to get out this thought cleanly.
Sorry, dude. I have a ring light, right, that I travel with, a really small one, and it like unplugged, and I'm like, fuck. That thing not my fault. Actually, that one wasn't my fault. So it just unplugged, and I'm like, oh god, I'm being very distracting. Everyone's probably just focusing on the mic.
If anything, it's perfectly on brand. Slasher's lagging out. We have no production. You're just throwing your light across the room. It's all good.
Wait, so
unplugged.
Just to interrupt before you give your perspective, EliGE, what's the bald buff like? There's definitely one, right? There is absolutely something going on here.
I mean, I would say just mentally, it just is something that you don't have to worry about as much. Honestly, it's just a lot easier to not have to like worry about like your appearance as much, because I know that's just how it felt for me. Like I would always just be thinking about like how I was looking and like how it was like affecting me. Even when I'm like on cam, just like getting ready for my game, I'm like, okay, am I gonna like how's the light looking? Am I gonna look extra fucking bald today? And it's honestly like it's just shitty, So just having like one less thing to like feel shitty about just makes you feel better overall, I'd say.
I shouldn't laugh at that, but just the idea that you fucking wake up, go to the studio, and be like, "Am I extra fucking bald today?" Actually cracks me.
No, you know what I like. There's
if you have the lights.
If you have the lights that are like shining on top, and if I have like thin blonde hair, it just like shines through and makes me look even worse. So I'm just It's another like thing that's in like your head that just is not fun to think about.
Yeah, I'm fat, and when the camera's on me, it's like, I swear it's like adding extra pounds. Like I know I'm thick, but it's I swear to God, it's not what it looks like.
EliGE, we all think you're bald and beautiful. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone in the scene adores you. You might be one of NA's hottest representatives. Okay. You cannot think otherwise. All right. You bring the sexiness to NA. All right. Don't take that away from you. Okay. You got to believe in yourself.
Now let him talk about the FPS.
Yeah. So is Flom completely full of shit now? Is everything that Flom said incorrect? Please say yes.
I don't think that it's affecting 5v3s being won or lost. I just don't agree with that. But I do think that the game is like shittier compared to Go. And I've been trying to like say stuff about it, but I feel like every time I say anything about it, and that's what's kind of annoying because I think a lot of the times like people from the community will see genuine criticism or things that like we want to get fixed, like feedback, and they'll just like equate it to whining. And I actually made a tweet about like how the FPS is actually just getting worse, and people are just going in on me. I'm like, geez, I didn't know like the FPS getting worse was such a controversial topic, because it's just a fact. Like it's just an absolute fact that the FPS and the frames 1% lows are just way worse in CS2 compared to Go. And then if I'm going to talk about the beginning of CS2 to now, the frames have definitely gotten worse. My like I used to be able to travel with my laptop and play pugs on it. I would sometimes get better frames than like the tournament PCs on my laptop. I would be getting like 480 frames on like the benchmark map. And now it's completely unplayable. Like I can't even like play on my laptop. And it makes the game just feel worse. When you're just doing normal movements, it just feels a lot worse when you're having like those 1% lows dip so much.
Yeah, I think a lot of like what people are saying they're always feeling, I really just think it comes down to a simple like answer of it's just not well optimized at the moment. I can't even alt tab inside the game if I'm in a server or my game will crash. You know, just like that's like insane. Oh, like, oh yeah, oh, I accidentally wanted to check something real quick, or I was death matching and my face it queue popped. Well, shit, now my game's actually locked up. And also, usually when that happens for me, I have to like really give it time to open up again. It's not like it just snaps back open. It's like a whole process of 5 minutes or so just trying to get back into a server because I alt tabbed one time. Like that's kind of insane. As much as I love the devs and I'm fortunate enough to, you know, just go yap with them and be there for the development, it's undeniable how much worse the game feels over time, like John just said, but also it's crazy how sporadic the performance feels. Like there are games where I go without noticing any problems, and then I don't know what it is. It's just like something happened to your game. Well, it's just worse right now.
Playing
You just have to accept it. Yeah, I mean, Ancient's probably the biggest one. Inferno, throw a little bit of Inferno in there at times as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the game just is worse optimized wise, and that's so many of the problems for the feeling of the game.
Yeah, maybe Maui's right too, and his little peak thing. I don't know if you saw his clip where he's like the body is like going first. I think that's what it was. The torso is like going first, and then the legs catch up. I would want to see that compared to Go because I didn't remember it being like too different.
Well, I could tell you, no, it's super different because that was the first thing we complained about in the office. Like their models were like spider legs. Like it was crazy at the start. There was so much movement and momentum in the character models that the peeker's advantage felt like insane. You would get like peaked by like a guy's shoulder coming out with momentum, and on your screen you just got killed by like the right shoulder. And then they tried to tighten up the model to center more on your torso, similar to like Go, but I think they still left a lot of movement in the models to make them seem more, you know, realistic, I think was the idea. And I don't disagree with Maui. I saw the video. It was on my phone though, so I don't know how good of a representation it was, but I'm like squinting looking at this little video. But yeah, I do think that it's probably in some ways model related. Yeah, that's how we felt even at the very beginning. And it used to be a lot more severe because they tried to implement a lot more momentum into the models.
Yeah.
What about the movement itself? Would you say there's a big difference at the moment? Like I know a bunch of KZ players, someone like Rops can really tell. It feels like the difference between the two. Do you think that's significant?
I think the latest patch like fixed. I think they said they adjusted like the different jump height bug, right?
Apparently, it didn't actually get fixed. I saw another video that someone posted of like, hey, it didn't actually get fixed. So
yeah, that's kind of. I'm like trying to think of like the biggest one that I run into all the time with inconsistent jump height would be Ticket on Mirage. Trying to jump up and down on the box. Sometimes you clip, and two, sometimes you just don't make the jump. And it's really weird, but I don't think I've run into too many circumstances. But I don't know. It's basically too early for me to personally tell if they've like fixed the inconsistent jump height. they did fix the boost finally. Shout out Pagu, right? That's his name, Pagu,
Yeah.
for finding that. Thank
Thank
God.
God.
Thank
Well,
God.
Thank God.
Like beyond the jump height, though, do you feel like the movement is impacting the swing stuff at all? Or do either of you feel like is the movement 1-to-1 with CS:GO right now, or how far off does it feel strafing around and circle strafing and bunny trying to
Ooh.
bunny hop and just all that stuff?
Feels
I
like
mean, I think it definitely is worse compared
Yeah.
to Go. But you can go first, Falm.
I was just gonna say, it basically just feels like they added like 30 pounds to the characters. Like, is kind of how it feels. Like you just feel like you have extra weight. Like everything.
Intentional?
I don't know. That's
Unintentional?
I'm gonna
It's
farm
hard
a lot.
to tell with Valve, right?
I'm
'Cause they
gonna
just
farm
do
a lot of
stuff.
react. It feels like 64 tick, like when you do stuff like that. Like that's how it used to feel
Oh,
in
it is.
matchmaking. Yeah, well, I know
It is
that's what I'm
64
saying, but that would be the best. I mean, because it is raised. Like you have sub tick, but when you used to play matchmaking and Go with 64 tick, you'd sit there and you could just tell when you moved around that your character just felt so much heavier. And that's basically what CS2 feels like. Is your character just doesn't feel as crisp. Even though subtick is there to kind of like try to bridge the gap, I guess. But yeah, that's just feels like 64 tick movement.
Yeah, 100%. It just feels like 64 tick, and everyone that plays 64 and 120 tick and Go knows that 120 just feels a lot better. So intrinsically, it's just going to be worse in CS2 because they forced everybody to be on 64 tick, which I don't understand that still. I will never like understand like why we have to
Yeah.
play at 64 tick compared to 128. 64 sub tick, sorry. 64 sub tick. Like they should at least like unlock it so we can play 128 sub tick like it was at the beginning of CS2. I get why they did it in terms of just nades wanting to be consistent across matchmaking and pugs, but because they didn't actually invest into making matchmaking playable, I think that the argument just has no legs. That was the only thing that made sense to me. Where it's like, okay, if they're going to be investing into their matchmaking and it's going to be something important, then okay, we're going to get good VAC. They want it to be the same across platforms. But now, if we're all just going to play Face It anyway, then I feel like they should just make the game be good for us, like feel good for everybody.
Yeah.
But it's not like significantly worse, right? I'd say it's like a difference of like 5 to 10% maybe or something like that. If I'm just going to randomly pick a number.
Is it still that 5-10%? Is that enough for, let's say, all the players, all the teams to get together? Is it like a big enough issue that it should be pressured upon the esports like scene in totality for at least an option from Valve to do this on LAN?
There's nothing that we can really do, I think.
Yeah, I was about to say, what pressure are you going to put on Valve?
that.
Yeah. Valve will be like, yeah,
okay,
that's
but
cool, bro. That's great. Yeah, nice try.
They do listen to suggestions. Okay, they're always listening.
Yeah,
Now,
they listen.
Implementing them and doing them is a different thing. Or even doing what you suggest is totally, does not have to be. But they are aware of things. Usually, the more discussion of something that there is, the more potential for there to be a change.
I mean,
Like,
I just want to go down.
Everyone should be up in arms about. Like, is it detracting enough from the tier 1 gameplay, either as a spectator or as a player, that it should become more of an issue?
Nah, I think for tier 1 players, I think it's like probably not great. I'm not going to sit here and tell them they should just suck it up or something. I still think like the bigger issue as a whole is basically what John said, where like you're doing these things to streamline the experience for Counter-Strike so everybody's playing the same game. That's great. But you better take care of the systems and the matchmaking that you're streamlining this for, or like let everybody do what we did and Go, right? Like if you're not actually going to take care of the matchmaking system, if you're not going to have like a real anti-cheat, I still can't play Premiere, by the way. My hidden elo is too high. I cannot queue. I have queued for 3 separate hours in different like scenarios. I tried to 5-stack. I tried to play by myself. I can't even queue with people because my hidden MMR is too high. I can't even play with people. This system is so broken. By the way, we're still on season 1. When is season 2? Like, I like 100% agree with this idea that like if the pro scene is like slightly compromised, or like maybe compromised it, like just worse because the game isn't as good as it could be on like 128 subtick. I think that's totally acceptable if matchmaking is freaking good. Like people get to play the same thing and it's all just like one giant, streamlined experience for everyone that everybody can relate to. We're not there though. We have most people, once they get to a certain point, are at least aware of Face It, or they're just not playing anymore. I mean, pick one. Like you're either going to get cheated after you hit a certain marker, or you're going to just go play something else. And that's just awful. And then now you don't have 128 tick subtick for this experience. Like that's what we're doing. I don't know. So I don't think pro players are super destroyed or something like that, but it sucks that you make that compromise to like realize zero value out of it.
Yeah, I think the main thing is the pro players know what would make the game feel better, especially the ones that are very like technical savvy. And it would just be nice if, we could get some of these improvements that I feel like are just kind of a no-brainer. Like just allowing 128 tick is kind of just like a no-brainer to me. Some things that aren't a no-brainer is just, saying, oops, we messed up with subtick. Let's maybe just try the normal tick stuff again.
Yeah, that won't
That's
happen
debatable,
though.
of course. Yeah, that's not going to happen, and it's also debatable, right? Since I don't have any knowledge of it too much, but I just want to see like the game like feel better. And 128 tick is just something that would just instantly make the game feel better. For me, I want the game to be optimized more. Like that's my main thing. Like I'm doing that for everybody as well, not only just me. It's not like a selfish thing. Like I have the best computer that's possible. I'm doing this for like I want the game to feel better for a lot of people. Like I've had friends that just stopped playing Counter-Strike because their computers are just not good enough anymore, and they can't just drop 2K or 3K to just upgrade their entire rigs. They'll just go play Valorant or something, or they'll just go play something else. So I want the game to be more accessible to everyone, and for the game to feel better. Like that's what I want, and I think that those two things should be like the main focus for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do want to echo Flom that I actually cannot believe the current Premier ranked experience. First, I just thought that Valve was gaining information like they like to do in testing and having people play so they can make changes and advancements to the official rank system. And nothing happened. And it's been like a year or whatever. And as you said, we're still in season 1. There's cheaters in all the high ranks. The actual like ratings don't matter anymore. The matchmaking itself is completely fucked. I cannot believe that this is still the experience, and that it has really not fundamentally changed at all compared to every other major game. When rank launched with Valorant, it was pretty good, and it's been consistently pretty good. For it to be like, this was supposed to be maybe the number one reason why CS2 was going to be significantly different than CSGO, because if you are a normal regular player, you don't have to go on Face It to play ranked matchmaking. Like most gamers are not going to use a third party for their everyday games, and it has been a complete failure. Like it's really hard for me to see any of the positives so far implemented in the Premier rank thing. For me, that is by far the number one thing that Valve has to focus and fix and get like working some way so that people are not forced to play on Face It or ESCA if that's still alive.
No, the ESCA is Face It, but no, I mean, I just think like you're right. Like usually it's like Valve, it's like, okay, surely we're just waiting and seeing like what they've figured out, and
That's
but now they I guess haven't figured it out, or I don't know. My glass half full, and this is like the only thing I could think of, is maybe that they have spent so much time reconfiguring the tier 1 circuit and trying to roll out all of these changes to the pro scene that they're just completely like underwater. Because for better and for worse, say what you want like about the devs are always doing stuff, and I just feel like if they're not pushing out updates, remember the devs are also in charge of the circuit. There isn't like some esports team at Valve. So you can be mad at Gaben for that, but don't be mad at the devs if this is my glass half full. Remember, if they're sitting there trying to reconfigure the circuit, because last time they basically didn't do this, they said, hey, don't franchise, don't do that. And then they didn't say anything else. And then ESL and Blast were like, so what if we like kind of franchised? And then that created the system that we have now. And then Val's like, dude, are you like, come on. Like, I think that's like so I think that's where I'm hoping that all of their attention is basically just being monopolized in that way, where they're, I mean, if you think about it from the ground up, they're trying to create an entirely new rule set, ranking system, and way that the CS scene will work for the foreseeable future. And I just don't think that that's like a, well, we put this into chat GPT and we're done. You know, I feel like this is, I mean, I've had to email them back and forth for our little revival series tournament just to get clarification on things, how to do things. I can only imagine the amount of questions they're getting from ESL, Blast, PGL, Starletter. So yeah, like I just, that's my trying to be optimistic about what's been going wrong or what's like why the updates are slower, is that's what I'm hoping is basically taking their attention. That would justify it a little bit. I still think they've completely dropped the ball, but that's my optimistic version of it, I guess.
So what you're saying is spam the deadlock memes in chat.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Mhm.
Look at all these updates on Deadlock. Oh my God. How do you, so actually though, on a more serious note, John, how do you feel about the circuit next year? You like excited about it? Like think
Crazy.
it's good, bad? What do you think?
Bad. I think it's gonna be bad, but we'll see. I'm not very optimistic about it, but I can't really do anything about it, so I try not to think about things that I don't have any control over.
Is
I'm
it
not
more
very
so
optimistic for it.
without trying to open up like a can of worms to, well, fuck it, I'll do it. Like what part of it? Like, is it the fact that basically everybody's announcing all their new tournament circuits and they're all going to be in Europe? Is that the short version?
Well, if I was to look at it from like the NA perspective, I think that it's going to be very hard, especially depending on like the tournaments that people can actually go to, because you're going to need a minimum amount of global elo to even get invites to the tournaments without open qualifiers. So there's a lot of tournaments that teams just will have no way to qualify for. I forget which TO just announced that, but that's just how it is. And if you aren't a team that has enough elo, which is a majority of NA teams are just simply not going to have enough global elo, and they're not going to have any way to get any global elo, then they pretty much are not going to have anything to play for. And that just kind of sucks, right? Like I think that just the system has flaws that aren't very easy to fix. And you can argue like the other way of, you know, there's not a lot of things that people can play for now either, which is like a whole other topic. But I don't know. I think that I would like the way that they calculate like the elo to be a little bit different, is what I would think. Because if you simply don't have any tournaments to play for and you don't have like big teams that are able to like, you know, give elo to like to the lower teams, then they're just not gonna have any way to like advance forward and get the invites. And if there's no open qualies, then there's just nothing to really play for. So that's like one side of it from like the NA perspective. And then the other is I think that there's just way too many tournaments. It's even
Yeah.
worse compared to, you know, 2018 is when I would think of like the worst amount of like travel. I think in 2018, I think I traveled like 240 or 250 days. I think Steve has like the exact number, but it's just ridiculous. Like I don't think that anyone actually realizes how hard that is on your body and mental to travel that many days. It's actually just crazy. And the problem is you have to do that because of the way that ESL, Blast, and I don't actually know if PGL and
PGL.
Starletter have these ones as well. But I was talking about more like the partnership programs. So they pretty much want you to like play like all their tournaments, right? Like to get the rev share for the as like a team, you need to play most of their tournaments to get like the bonuses as like an org. And that means that you can't really just pick and choose where you want to go. You can't just be like, okay, I'm going to be on the road for like 3 weeks. Then we're going to like chill for like 10 days just to like recoup and everything like that. And then let's go for like 2 weeks in a row. Yeah, Cologne's pretty cool. Like, let's go to Cologne. And, you know, the major's coming up after that. So, yeah, that's a cool schedule. We can't like really do that, even though I feel like it's been presented in that way where it's open circuit. We're just going to be able to do whatever we want and just go to whatever tournaments we want, pick whichever schedule we want. It doesn't actually work like that in the real world because the teams need to make money, and the only way they're going to make money is if they get the bonuses from the rev share agreements. And the only way that you get the rev share bonuses is if you attend all of those tournaments for whichever TOs that you choose. So I know that was kind of like long-winded, but
I think it's really insightful. Keep it going.
Yeah, I just think that it's like a deceptive to think that like we have like a lot of choice in our schedules next year, and I think it's really just packed. It's just completely packed, and it's really hard from like the team and player side of things, I think.
Well, your boss is in chat. Jason Lake's already mad at me for keeping you up late. No apologies, Jason. All right, they're gonna win tomorrow and do the interview.
He's got the late game. Okay? He's fine. Also, if you know EliGE's schedule, he's the one that stays up late, but he's also snappy in there.
Favor. You're welcome, Jason. You're welcome. So is there any possibility that sometime next year you could be like, Jason, I know esports is going through some issues. You guys need the stipend. We don't want to play this tournament, even if it's a gigantic prize pool. Is that like a actual possibility?
Not really, because it kind of even goes back to the ELO thing that I was talking about, because if you don't go to like some tournaments and then the people that went to the tournament got the ELO from like those games, then you just will miss out on tournaments because of it. So it's, I don't know. And I know like kind of like what the numbers would kind of be from some of like the revenue agreements like between like the teams. And it's not going to be as much as like these years like that we've had like this year and like the years previous. So it will be like lower from that perspective. So we're already like playing for something that's less from the team perspective. I'm saying like for the teams will get less revenue this next year, most likely compared to like this year and the years before. And if you miss out on that, then I mean, team revenue is already so scarce, right? Like you either get revenue from the tournament agreements that you have, sponsors, and I mean, there's a bunch of different things, but a big part of that is the tournament stuff. So I think that's what most orgs are going to make sure that they try to get.
Yeah, it's no longer just the money equation. Now, if you skip a tournament, you might lose or you might not gain ELO. And if there's teams that are grinding every single tournament going there, you're only going to go further down the ranking. So it's going to, basically you have to be at every event. Like you're actually going to kind of, from my understanding, you'll get penalized a bit if you do skip. Everybody's like, there's going to be more tournaments so you can skip out. Well, guess what? Spirit has Donk, who's 17 and wants to go to every single tournament and doesn't want to sit out. Well, you might you might fall behind a little bit and they might, squeeze out an invite over you or something like that. You know what I mean? There's going to be some teams where they're just at every single event doing every single thing they can to get every bit of ELO. And there's going to be other teams where they're going to skip. And then, next thing you know, well, you get passed up because of a couple different, surprise wins or whatever it is, and you lose an invite. I don't know. It could be really weird. I could see it just snowballing in a really negative way.
For someone who watches and covers the esport, I am not a fan at all. There are multiple issues, with this. It devalues, of course, there's oversaturation, and then it devalues individual tournaments. There's just so many tournaments and leagues and cups, and it's like non-stop all of the time, relatively with the same teams all the time, just different groups and different brackets. And it really makes me care less about each tournament other than like the big ones, the majors or Cologne, or whenever they go to like a big, event, maybe like the Brazil event, depending on the stadium, or like cool thing like Australia or Katowice or things like that. Of course, those will be staples, but there's just so many different pro leagues. And now PGL has 5 new lands, and there's Yala, and there's
Sky Esports,
Fissure, and there's Thunder Pick now, and there's going to be, I feel like there's 30, 40 lands or tournaments, and Pro League is going to be changing, and we don't know what that's going to turn into. But each of the Pro Leagues are like, I don't know, 2-3 months.
3 weeks. They're 3
long?
weeks. They used to be 5 weeks. Now they're 3 weeks.
Okay.
But
okay.
I mean, that's gonna all change. Yeah. So it's kind of.
Yeah. I mean, it's better, but it's still insane. If you especially are a fan and you're trying to, let alone someone who like covers the game professionally, or Flom who co-streams all the tournaments, like even it's still hard for us. But if you're just a normal fan, it's almost impossible to follow or even figure out what is happening. Like, who is the best team? Who is like, yeah, you have HLTV rankings. I don't think it is, and now you do have official Valve rankings, which I think actually will help a little bit for the casual fan to understand. But I still think it's extremely difficult for the average person to know who the best teams and the best players are at any given moment, because of the scattered nature that Valve, runs their esports events, which is they don't, and they let everyone else do. And just the sheer amount of now investment into Counter-Strike. Like, Dota has a ton of events, but not as many as CS. I mean, it's easily has shown that CS is the thing that gets the most amount of viewers in the West compared to Dota. Maybe some of this money will be funneled into Deadlock once it eventually goes into beta and launch. I mean, I'm sure ESL will go full into Deadlock, but at the moment, it does not seem like it is good for the industry or the community or the scene. It's good for the individual TOs, I guess, to compete against each other to produce a better product. But I feel like overall, for the average fan, it is a net negative.
Casual fans, I'd agree with that. Yeah. Like, I mean, and if you want to be invested, it's going to basically be like a full-time job, like to follow everything, because they're going to be at so many tournaments. Somebody made it
be like that though.
I know. Yeah. Somebody made a comment. They're like, if it's not Blast or ESL, who cares type situation. But let's be honest, you're going to care if NiKo shows up at a certain event with G2 and they're playing against EliGE or they're playing against you will care. Like, you're going to want to see that matchup, and it's just going to be another thing that you kind of have to like keep track of. And who knows, they probably played each other last week, but you still like, so you're kind of, all right, what are they doing? Are they changing a map? And that's kind of what we had a long time ago, is it felt like we were seeing rematches all the time because there were so many tournaments that teams were just like trading wins with each other all the time in different tournaments, because you just had them back to back to back. I did want to ask you, have you noticed EliGE that G2 is actually number 1 on Valve's rankings and Navi's 1 on HLTV? Yeah. I won't go too deep into that, but do you have a preference in who you think is number 1 out of the two? You think it's G2 or Navi?
Well, G2 hasn't beaten Navi, right? So, and Navi has like won 3 of the last tournaments recently. So
World Cup, Major, and 2. Yeah.
Yeah, so 2 of like the last tournaments in like the last couple weeks. So I'd pick Navi for sure.
All right. Yeah, I was just kind of curious because I thought that was really interesting that G2 kind of went over them. It's only by a couple points, but it's literally 2 points actually, now that I'm looking at it. But I was just curious. And then speaking of G2, there's the Falcons rumor with NiKo going to Falcons, yada, yada, yada. I'm sure you saw that. What do you think? Do you think somebody goes there? And if you think somebody goes there, do you think he actually has a better chance at winning the major with Falcons? Because I will prime you, I think actually he's got a more likely chance to win with Falcons with Zonic, Magisk, and Snappy than he does with his current team. That's my hot take for the day. So there you go.
Why? Well, why do you think that, actually? I think that GT looks insane.
I think they look insane up until they actually have to outmaneuver somebody in the server. Like, I mean, every time, like you said, right? Have they ever beaten Navi? Right? Like, they get into these tricky situations, they got 2-0'd by Mouse for having a 5v4. Like, I think it was something like 80% of the time. They got a pick almost every single round in Cologne to start a round off, and they lost the majority of the time. So that's why I feel like G2 has so much firepower. And if I were to take some of that firepower in NiKo and put it in Falcons, and I had a player like Magisk who can now kind of like, Magisk is insane. He's still incredibly, I don't know, I feel like people overlook him, and you have a coach that's won more majors than anybody. That has to have some sort of value in this scenario. To me, at least, it does. And I feel like it might actually position himself, depending on if there were somebody else to join him. There's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts here. But I think it would be kind of interesting because I think G2 kind of has this weird cap where individually, I would never doubt that team. I think they can literally beat anybody in the entire world. But at the same time, I just also feel like they can't win the major. I don't know. It's a really odd feeling to describe, but that's how I feel about them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that G2 is really strong. Like, as you said, the firepower is just really strong, but they, yeah, I mean, I think I agree with like most of what you're saying. I don't think that I necessarily agree that NiKo going to Falcons is definitely going to be better because, like you said, it kind of just depends on who else would join with NiKo. But like Falcons isn't like that far off if you just like look at like their roster, I think. But just when I don't know, whenever I like watch them, or I mean, I played against them also recently. They it feels like it's going to be a little bit more than just one guy can just fix everything. So they definitely need like a structural change, and that's gonna that's gonna necessitate like 2 or 3 people, I think, and that's probably what NiKo is hoping for, I guess, is what I'm assuming. Um, well, I don't know. I feel like if I'm NiKo and I have like such a good team already with like Monacy and Malbs is playing super good, like you're just like so close. Like just get like that, that one more guy. If they are missing something, right? And I feel like they haven't
Hasn't
like
he
played
been so
much.
close for like 3 or 4 years? It feels like NiKo is
I mean, he won
always
some
so
tournaments
close.
now. He won some big tournaments now. He
Yeah,
won
he
like
has.
Katowice with Hooksy.
Only because of Hooksy though. I said it, and because of Stu. Hooksy and Stu carried
And Stu.
NiKo. No,
Yes, they did.
I honestly think if
Clip it
Hooksy
and
stayed
ship
on
it.
G2, they would probably be really good. But I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. But I feel like Hooksy, I think that he was a really good caller for them. I thought he was doing well. I was pretty surprised that they removed him.
yeah, from outside, everybody always like to dog on him, but I do think that Hooksy went a little too far being a team player. I think that's why eventually there is something like you can be a great IGL, but you also have to know how to like set yourself up in some ways. And I think Hooksy struggles with that a lot. I think he was too much of a team player. You can't just be the guy that's using yourself as a human flashbang in 99% of scenarios to set up your team. Like that's good and that's cool that you're able to do that, but also like like game requires a little bit of rhythm. If you're just like throwing your life away on T side, Hooksy goes to CT side, you're not going to just be like, oh yeah, let me just snap it on individually and make sure I'm like locking down my area and I'm individually sound. I just think I think that's what ultimately led to him no longer being on the team. And I think a lot of IGL struggle with that. Problem though is I think Snacks was like, listen, I am a huge Snacks fanboy. I cannot stress this enough. And Snacks and Taz being together is great, but I also can't sit here and be like, yeah, tactically G2 looks great. They are crushing it. It's just, it feels like they just, they are so good individually, but they lack a lot of that. If you watch like a G2 default versus an Navi default, it's night and day. It's not even remarkably close. It's wild. Yeah. And I think that's where NiKo is going to struggle for a while. And yeah, I was super curious about that. I mean, Malbs is absolutely nuts. If NiKo does end up doing the Falcons thing, I feel bad for Malbs because holy crap. But that's where you're gonna go to G2. That's my current theory is NiKo's out of G2 and then the Bald Eagle joins and gets his major. There you go.
Jason Lake is still in chat, Fom. Just want you to know that, okay?
We'll edit this out. It's fine.
I would feel really bad for Malbs. Like he just joins and he has NiKo and Monacy as his teammates, and then it's like they're just gone.
I know, dude. That's what I think is gonna happen. That's what I'm pretty sure. Like, I mean, I think we're all thinking is like, is Monacy gonna go? Like, surely NiKo isn't just gonna like dip, and it's not like a money problem. So it's like, oh god, that would be awful. Like, I'd feel so bad, dude. I'd feel so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a world where both teams get worse, right? NiKo goes to Falcons. He still doesn't win a major. They still don't succeed or get the structure they need. And G2 does not find a suitable replacement for NiKo. And they are not able to even get back to the level that they had when NiKo was playing. I think that's not an unrealistic take.
But NiKo will have a lot more money.
Yes. Did you see what EWC did for NiKo? I did post a link in the show doc. It's Ozzy's tweet where they have like 15 billboards with NiKo's face on it.
Yeah, I think JL like took that picture initially or something.
Yeah, it is JL.
It
It
was
is
just a
JL.
bunch
Oh
of
yeah, I'm
pictures
looking at
of
it.
him all over. I think that was just a coincidence. 'Cause
Oh
I think it was
yeah.
just
Okay.
Oh my god, he really is
Okay.
everywhere. I hadn't seen that yet.
But that was way before the rumors. I think that
No,
this
yeah,
is
yeah,
just serendipity.
It was all the signs were there all along. We just weren't, acknowledging them. That's crazy.
It was before the rumors, but what do you think the Saudis were doing to entice NiKo? Put his face on every single billboard while every other pro player is there to look at him. They're like, look, we give you the kingdom and all of our money. You join Falcons. I have no idea. I actually feel like that's probably a good possibility that happened.
I feel like there's just no way that NiKo is like thinking about this just from the money perspective. I think that he thinks that like he's gonna build
we don't
team.
know how much money it is though, right?
I mean, I don't know, but if I'm NiKo and I'm like that good for like so long and I don't have like a major yet and like all the trophies that I want, I'm gonna want to go to a team that can make that happen. Like there's just no way that he's like, yes, finally 50K a month. Like there's just no way. That's just my opinion. Like,
are you?
I think he has plenty of money.
Well, at what number is it? Like, oh, okay, I understand now. Is it 100K?
I just think
is it 100K?
If you have 5 million, like let's just say that I have $5 million, right? If I had 7 million, like my life's not gonna change that much, right? But I mean, if I have like 20 million. That's a big difference.
All right, so wait, you hear that, guys?
wait.
We're hearing the numbers that it takes to move him around. Okay, like
we talked about this on our team too. It's just like how much actually is the difference? Like when are you actually rich? Because I feel like your life really doesn't change that much until like you hit like a certain number where things actually are different. That's what I'm talking. That's what I mean.
You are an esports pro player. You should always be taking the most amount of money every single time. LeBron James is a billionaire, a self-made billionaire. He has other ventures, in investments, I think in the Red Sox group. He's probably going to own the Vegas NBA team after he retires. He would not take a pay cut from his new contract with the Lakers. He is still getting maximum amount of money, even though he could take less money and it would actually help his team win a championship. The biggest problem for the Lakers is that he has no help because him and Anthony Davis are taking up all the cap in terms of like the team. So LeBron James is not going to be taking any less money as a billionaire. No, you should never. I actually think it's pretty dumb too. But
Tom Brady took less money. I mean, if you're gonna go this route,
Tom Brady did. Yes,
Brady took less money, and I think it benefited him a lot more. So also, I guess NiKo really is LeBron. That's crazy.
But fucked up. Robert Kraft kind of fucked over Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady was actually expecting some of that money back on the back end, and then he got
his NFT money and his crypto money. He's all good. That one didn't fully clear, but he thought, for a second he was all good. Okay. Well, let's bring it back in a little bit. We'll go full serious. Hold on, no, I'm bringing it all the way back. Who is winning Pro League besides Complexity? Obviously.
I don't know. I think that's. I mean, have we seen Vitality play yet? Have they played yet? They're in our group, right? Or they're in the next group? I don't even know.
Vitality's in D. They're not in your group. You guys are in C.
I don't know. I feel like G2 is pretty close to like winning something. So I was like kind of surprised you were saying that because when I watch them, I do think that they are really good and they kind of can just win on being that much better than the other team.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Navi is still looking really good, but they're having a lot more games that are closer than I'd expect for some of their games. But they still look really good. Spirit is looking better too. I think that Donk was obviously looking really good in all of his games that he was playing. But it kind of has been kind of the Donk show, and not really a lot of the other players are like helping too much. So I don't know. I feel like my favorites maybe is G2 from what I've seen so far. Yeah, I think that they look really good.
Can you explain to me, and I'm not even disagreeing with you, does it, as a player, and I feel this way all the time, do you feel like Vitality is just slept on all the time? I just feel like for whatever, like...
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we never talk about them winning, right? I didn't talk about them a singular time winning Cologne, and they just strolled right on through. Like that.
Yeah.
It's so weird, right? Like it's I was just curious, like, is it something as a player? Like when you play against them, you feel like they're not as dangerous? Is it like
No, I actually think Vitality is insane too. Like I feel like when out of all of the teams that I've played like in the last like year, I think Vitality is the hardest. Um and I mean, we've gotten owned by a lot of teams just for the record, but I think that Vitality is like a very difficult team to play against because their firepower is crazy, and I think that Apex is calling very well too. Zabu's literally like a god. I feel like they have all the pieces that is necessary for them to be godlike, and I think that the probably the reason, just to go back to your question of why, people don't talk about them more is because they have all that, but they haven't been, winning everything. Which, I mean, they are number 2 right now, and they just won Cologne. But just for the reasons of why they could potentially be slept on, even though they're just slept on as the second best team in the world.
Well, I know, but nobody ever picks them to win. You know what I mean? Like that's always like why I'm curious. Is it like because people think Zywu struggles in finals? Is it?
Nah, I don't subscribe to that. I think that they're insane. I don't know. I for some reason I just didn't choose them.
I do the same thing. That's literally listen, this is not an attack on you. This is me trying to figure it out, like, because everybody does the same thing. I do it too. It's like, yeah, Vitality's there. They're really good. They got everything they need. Are they gonna win? Nah, I think G2, like, or Navi. It's just
I don't know. I think Vitality is really hard to deal with. Out of all the teams, like, you can't like just bully anyone on Vitality. And people are gonna say Mezzi, but dude, he's not like bad like at all.
Just play
like,
the Anubis Ace whenever somebody says Mezzi. Just play that Anubis Ace on plat one time and just be like, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's the guy I want to go at. Perfect. Yeah, that's a great option, guys. No, okay. That's so G2. Yeah, I think I feel like the type of style of Counter-Strike that they play, not that they can't play on big stages at all. Just I feel like Pro League sometimes you kind of have, it's closer to that studio environment because it's not played in front of a large crowd that, if you're going to really just fire on all cylinders and just shoot people straight out of the server, Pro League is a great way of doing that. MAUs have become merchants of that. They just get red hot in groups and they just carry it on because you don't have like a separation. It feels like too much between groups and playing in playoffs in Pro League. But I think for me personally, I got, should I just say Vitality just because I never picked Vitality,
Oh, maybe I should swap to Vitality too if we're doing picks.
You can't take my thing here.
Well, but you kind of convinced me. You're right. Like, I feel like Vitality makes sense. Like, everything that we just said, it makes sense. They should be winning.
Now that we say it, they're gonna get grouped. Like,
no way. That'd be crazy.
Is Zybu the best player in the world right now?
Donk.
Nah, I think it's Donk. I think that there's just no one that's just playing as insane as him.
It's Donk. It's not even close. It was close for a second there when they got absolutely bombed out of Cologne, and you're just like, wow, that was like rough to watch. And then he picked up right where he left off, and it is Donk and friends though. That is a huge problem. Like, they've had a little bit of contribution from Shiro, but Donk is literally just carrying them through tournaments. Like, it is absurd what he's doing because he's not just getting a lot of kills. He's not blame F. He is running at people. He is running it down, and he is just entering everyone that he can. It is absurd. Like, the way he is playing Counter-Strike can only, to me, be compared to that run and that streak of play that NiKo had in Go right before he whiffed Simple on top of Hut on Nuke. That run of form from NiKo for like 6 months is like the same thing, but Donk is doing the same thing, and it's like, guys, NiKo almost won with God, I'd have to pull up that roster. That G2 roster, if you pull that up and you're like, that team almost won a major, is crazy. And Donk is making Spirit look real nice. It has to be Donk. It still has to be. Zywu is really, really incredible. And it's not to say that that Zywu's even lost for him. Zywu's crutch is that he is so consistent at a high level, but the way that he plays, he is more content with being like a part of the group and just kind of like fighting with the team and like slotting in the way that he's supposed to, where Donk wants to just run it down. Donk wants to run it down. He wants to take his fight, and he will win his fight 9 times out of 10. And yeah, I just don't think there's really anybody that's making the impact that he's making right now on a consistent basis game to game.
Yeah, I mean, I
How
say
is he able to
Modesty is
get
up
so
there
good?
too.
Is Don coming out of is this not like an insane rise from Donk from I don't know, a year and a half ago to the best player in the world?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. I think it's a combination of being on a team. Geez, what happened there?
I don't know,
Ghost?
dude.
I'd say it's just a combination of like him playing really well and getting uh good at like a crazy pace. Even in Go, he was playing very well in like the tier 2, tier 3 games that he was playing. And when you when you get to like play on a team that has so many experienced players, when Shiro and Chopper are there to help, control the macro, he doesn't have to like think too much about this stuff. About like he actually does contribute to the macro for sure. But from my understanding, it seems like it's Shiro and Chopper for like the main two guys. But uh, just having someone or these two guys that are like so experienced that can help set you up in the best way possible, I think that's definitely like what has like propelled him to be so good so fast. Because if you put Donk into like any 2015 NA team, like he would be good, but he wouldn't be like farming, Like you can only do so well when you're getting, 16-1, 16-3 every game. Like kind of how Cologne went for them. Like if you just get owned, then you can't really show like what you got. So you have to have like a pretty good baseline of like a team that can. You have like the really good teamwork, and they can put you in like the good spots. And like, okay, Donk wants to go in first, so normally he plays elbow on Ancient, but we want to do like a early B, walk up strat. Let's have just Chopper or Zontix go do that, and then Don can just walk up and just kill them all at B. Yeah, they're just putting him in the right spots, and I feel compared to other teams, I don't think people would shift around their players as much as Spirit does to make sure that like Donk is like in the spots that he's like super comfortable in.
Do you think that's why they also crumble so hard? Is like they've basically just made it the entire donk show, so they don't really have much to fall back on? Because that's how I feel. Is that I feel like they do exactly what you said, which is fantastic for donk, and they do get a lot of value. Like I am not trying to say that this is clearly it's working to a pretty high degree, but I also think that it's entirely reliant on donk maintaining his individual form. And people are human, It's not to say that donk is gonna, suck or something like that, but he is gonna have a bad map. It will happen every once in a while, and I feel like they don't do a good enough job of knowing how to set up anybody else. Like Shiro is incredibly passive, so you can't really like, you're not going to use them like how Twist is using ultimate a lot of the time, especially in the mid round. You can't use them in that way. Like you can't. I don't know. It feels like they just have no fallback plan, right? Like all their eggs are in one basket with the donk show and him entering.
Well, I I see what you're saying, but I don't really think that it would be possible. Oh, actually, I mean, I don't know. I'm just speaking out of my ass, but
No, no,
I don't
that's
think it would
good
be
though.
possible. Sometimes, like when you just have like players that are just naturally passive, it's really hard to do that. The difference between like Ultimate and Shiro and like Twist and all that stuff is Ultimate is like the guy that's like saying that he wants to go for this play, right? If you're an aggressive player, and that's why Ultimate was such a good pick for Liquid as well, because I think if Liquid picked up like a really passive Opper, I think they would have been screwed. I think that they would have had like three passive guys that they everyone else to just rely on like Yakindar to do everything and to like run in and stuff like that, which is like kind of like how we felt with the Cadian lineup. So that's kind of tangent to Liquid, but relating that to Spirit, I feel like everyone is pretty much passive besides Donk. Like I feel like it's very similar to how like Yakinder on Cadian Liquid is, where everyone is just really passive outside of Donk. Because Zontix is like a really passive guy, Magix is a passive guy, Shiro's always been a passive opper. So I feel like they're just using their pieces in the way that makes sense, right? And I think that if Donk was just getting like owned, and if they were losing and then Donk was having a bad game and then they were just getting crushed, not talking about Cologne because I think that was just like a one-off, then I think I would agree more. But I think that they're just using their pieces like correctly for what they have.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I definitely don't disagree with you in that they only really have passive players besides donk, so it's really hard to kind of like game plan around that. otherwise, like not having donk as the like main aggressor at all times. I get what you mean.
Yeah.
Zontix is more like Naf, like he's not gonna go run it down or something like that. Like he's sort of like, all right, it's my time to shine. Naf will take some duels and so is Zontix, but they also like to do it on a more individual level than some sort of like team-based decision where they're getting involved. No, I think I think you bring up a good point. It's just frustrating, like when I'm watching the games and you just see donk die and you just know that like, well, that round is probably done. You know what I mean? Like, unless Shiro has people aggressive to him right now, this round is just going to be really slow, drawn out, and eventually just they're going to lose. So, but
Yeah,
I think you're
that
absolutely
stuff
right.
comes from the players. Like I think that if you want someone to like be naturally like able to pick up the aggro if something's going wrong, then that has to come from like the players. You can't just like force it in a system. I mean, I guess you can, but I mean, I haven't really seen that work too much. I think that you have to have it come from the players themselves, and you have to be like, okay, like what moves can we do? Like, what are you comfortable doing? Or like have them like pug with donk, and they like get things that they're very comfortable doing, like on an individual level, and then they're able to make that stuff happen during the game, like if necessary. That's what I would think about it.
Okay, so KD into Spirit, got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
With just how much talent, especially in the last couple years, but always forever, has come out of the CIS scene between Russia and Ukraine, especially. Do you both feel that that is currently the strongest region at the moment? You could probably argue that Denmark for a good amount of years, maybe 2018, 2019, 2020, was producing maybe the most talent, but it really feels like the CIS scene lately has been just every single young talent has been coming out of there.
Well, they're the only region that still has national teams, so I probably, yeah.
You feel like that's helping?
Wait, hey, Astralis counts. Astralis is out there, holding it. Okay, I'll shut up now. Continue.
I feel like once like a scene has to like divulge into being like international, then they kind of like lose like their power, I'd say a little bit. Even I was gonna say, no, I was thinking of a team, but I was wrong. But
so
I
how
feel
many
like
years ago has NA lost their power?
Like
when EliGE and Twist split, I'll answer that.
Yeah, maybe 2020 or 2019. I mean, C9 too. C9 too.
Yeah, C9 as well after the major. Oof.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like once you lose once you're down to only one national team, I feel like it's a lot harder to build up after that. Same thing with like the French scene too, right? Like they had Vitality and G2, and they had LDLC White and LDLC. So they had so many French teams, and then I feel like as it starts like going lower and lower, the scene just gets like weaker and weaker, and then you just only have like a couple players from like that nation.
I think funny enough, I feel like regions are starting to like turn out like very specific types of players. Like CIS region, I don't know what it is, but oppers everywhere, man. Like they all could just op like amazing. Crazy. And then you have like, dude, Brazilian riflers are actually absurd. And then you got like Danish IGLs. I don't know. It's kind of interesting how I feel like every region, NA just, well, we got EliGE, so we'll just, that counts. That, but I do think, it made me, you were saying something about like the scenes, and once they go international, they become a bit weaker. And I was thinking about this like a few days ago, where I feel like international CS and Counter-Strike is definitely getting better, but I do, like the Launders take, I miss the national teams. It's easy to kind of get behind them and like create a narrative there. And it's kind of boring that we don't have those as much. But the other thing that to kind of like expand upon that and like talk about what you were saying, where teams lose the regionality kind of gets weaker. I feel like everybody's just playing the same game of Counter-Strike now. That's not, it's a very generalized way of saying it, because there are differences. Like, you look at VP and other stuff, but I do feel like Counter-Strike, everybody's just kind of playing the same, which kind of sucks a lot of the time. Like you have like the occasional explosiveness out of like Mongols and like the way Snappy used to call, but even now like Snappy with like Zontix, I feel like he's muted a bit in that system. I think everybody's just trying to play the same brand of Counter-Strike a lot of the time. It's been viewed as like, this is the best way to play CS and we should all play CS this way. Do you think that that's like true, or do you think that there's actually other ways to play CS from like different regions, like kind of like we used to have? Or do you think it is just kind of like we figured it out and we're just kind of evolving in this way, and it's more on like a micro level rather than some sort of like macro gameplay? Do you think certain regions don't really have their own flair anymore, I guess is what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I don't really think that regions have their own flair, and I honestly don't think that's been a thing for like a while. I think VP is like the only outlier team that's been super different in like the Asian teams. But the problem that you have with that is, you watch like let's just say for example like the Asian teams, and they come to like their tournament like every, once every 6 months, and then they do some crazy upset because they're doing like this crazy aggro style, crazy stuff happening all the time, and they win their one game and then they lose and then they go
Yeah.
home, and then they do it again in like 7 months, and then they, two upsets maybe, and then they lose and then they go home. And after a while, they're like, "Yo, why don't these guys? They're doing some good stuff, right? Like those strats, they
They
make
got it
sense.
figured out.
Those defaults, they make sense. Like they win consistently."
Yeah.
And I think that's just what happens. Like that's how it is for any game. In my opinion, that's just how like the meta game is. And
Yeah.
I think that unless that you had like very strong regions, and I'm kind of thinking of like League of Legends or StarCraft, where like the Chinese scene is super different. Like League of Legends, I'm thinking like a couple of years ago, where they were like super aggro, like doing like these crazy like level 1 tower dives and everything, and it was just not like that, like in LCS. Or in StarCraft, it was like that as well. I felt like the players from China were really different compared to like NA and EU. And if you have like a very strong scene with like a lot of like highly skilled players, I think that you can develop a meta like that. But I think if that you have everything centered where there's only one strong region, then everything's going to be kind of like molded to the meta of that region, unless you have enough teams and players in the other regions to make another meta be possible.
Gotcha.
Because,
Well,
yeah, you guys can go.
I mean, I have a question for you now. In League of Legends, LCS is reportedly going to be is now over. There will no longer be an LCS, and they are combining CBLOL, which is the Brazilian league, into LCS for one big super league, much like Valorant is in America, where it is the South American teams, not just Brazil, and the North American teams all at all in one league. I've always thought that, considering how strong the Brazilian Counter-Strike scene is, that it would make a lot of sense if NA and SA were combined here in CS. Maybe it would even give a reason for ESL to bring back a pro league here over in the Americas. Do you feel like that is something that is worthy of discussion?
Yeah.
We used to have that.
I
The
would love
Brazilians
that.
don't seem to want it. It seems like out of the two, the Brazilian scene, they don't want to be lumped in with
It's because they
the
don't need it.
Americans.
They don't need us anymore.
Yeah.
They like before we
They
used
have
to
their
have a
own
lot
leagues
more
and more money.
tournaments. Yeah, it's the Uno reverse card is like we used to
Yeah.
have the tournaments. We used to have like a lot of stuff going on, so they came here for more chances and more tournaments. And then now the Brazilian scene's doing great. They don't need anybody's help. They don't even need Europe. Their scene is massive. They like on a it's hard to kind of keep track of how many tournaments they have at times, but they have so many tournaments going on in specifically just Brazil as well. Like it's not even all of South America. I mean, from a North American perspective, yes, like please bring back North American
Yeah.
Pro League with everyone. Like, yeah, of course. Like this is the I don't think there's a single person that like has been around and saw like how North American European Pro League went and thought that that was actually bad. I think it's literally the opposite. Everybody just didn't even think it would ever go away. So like the idea that it did go away was like, oh crap, like now what? You know, it's like, yeah, but you can't like just switch it back on because they, there's agreements and all that kind of stuff that they did in line with that. But yeah, I don't think there's a single person that would say that the North American Pro League, where you had South American teams in it, you had Aussies playing in it. I think even one season might have had Tai Lu as well. I think I can't remember it correctly, but that having that was so like incredibly important for specifically just the North American scene. But the Aussies benefited from that at the time. The Brazilians definitely benefited from that. That was like one of their biggest times as a region with the teams they had. So I just don't think anybody that has seen that would ever say it was bad. The only thing that was bad back then is people didn't like how long the tournaments were, because you would go EU into NA and the games would be on for like 15 hours out of the day. And some people thought that was a bit much. I was one of them because I couldn't really contribute in some way, right? Like if you tried to stream Counter-Strike selfishly, you couldn't, there was nothing to do. You could only stream basically from 10 p.m. West Coast time till like 6 a.m. And that was that was the only time there was a tournament. But otherwise, from like a pure esports perspective, I don't know why that would be bad. I think having that regional pro league back again and having European pro league and then actually having it lead to a playoff that was actually like at a real venue. No disrespect to Malta. I think a lot of players enjoy the trip to Malta and I think they actually do enjoy the event. But also, man, lifting a grand slam like FaZe did in front of like maybe 50 to 100 people versus like what, other people have got to do for pro leagues and how big pro league used to be for an event. It just feels, I don't know what logic you could ever use where that would be a bad thing to bring it back.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't think it just even is feasible because the only way that something like that could happen is if everything was franchised, and that's just not going to happen anymore. So because you would just have to take over. There's just too many moving pieces for that to happen anymore, I think.
You think basically unless like somebody locked down all the teams, you just wouldn't be able to like get them for that long period of time? Or what specifically do you think like wouldn't allow it to work?
It's okay. Well, if we're just gonna go the pro league route, let's just say that we had a pro league. Why would some, like, let's just say for example, like why would us or Liquid want to play in a pro league that's gonna take like 3 or 4 weeks, and let's just say it's 250K or 500K or something. So it's 4 weeks, 250, 500. Let's say it's 500, and then we could do that, or we could just go to a PGL tournament that's 1 mil that's only in 5 days. So just from like a time perspective, like why would we choose that one? So I don't know. Unless you would force like the teams to do it, then I feel like there's just no way to make it happen.
I got you. Yeah, I mean that makes sense.
It does feel like Riot's experiment though has relatively succeeded. In Valorant, because I've been covering it and watching it, since for the new season, it's been really good. Like if it was just North American teams and we did not have the Chilean teams and the Brazilian teams, it would not nearly be as interesting. And I really think that they use that experiment for why they are now combining LCS into CB LOL. And then you see that the Brazilian Counter-Strike scene is more historic and has better quality teams than the League of Legends scene. So you would think that it would actually be pretty powerful combination. I know the Brazilian scene, as we spoke about, really doesn't want to do it. And logistically, it's really hard. In the Riot Leagues, Riot is paying the organizations to basically move their players to America. All right, that is not happening in CS, and that is a really big hurdle. But look, maybe ESL can use all the money they're getting from the Malta Tourism Board, which is why Pro League has been there for 2 or 3 years now, and they could actually invest that back into North American Pro League. I don't feel like I don't really know how ESL sees it up until this point, but North American Counter-Strike not being as strong as it could be, either from a competitive standpoint or from a viewership standpoint, is very bad for the sport overall. Not to be all American-centric here, but that is where the ad dollars are. That is where the money in the viewership is when it comes to like CPM and people tuning in, especially because Twitch and YouTube are American companies. The American audience is very important in terms of the health of the esport. Why not try to, in some way fix a situation which feels like can be improved some?
Yeah, I subscribe to the idea that merging the scenes is good, but also the Valorant circuit is complete poo-poo. Like,
okay, the Valorant circuit is terrible. Look, the circuit
you gotta separate it. You sounded
shit.
like you were liking the Valorant.
No. There's like 3 tournaments a year, and then
okay. No. So you're saying the merging
is over already? Okay. There's off-season stuff. Yeah, all of that is bad. All I'm talking about is specifically the combination of the North American teams and the South American teams. That has been a success. And that
I'm just
is
trying
why
to save
they're
you
now
here.
doing
You know,
that.
I'm just trying to save you here a
Yeah.
little bit.
Of course, no. Specifically, only the North American plus South American team. Everything else for the Valorant circuit is bad. All right, let me just be clear. All the other things they're doing are bad, but this
All right.
one unique thing I think is a good example.
You completely stunlocked me. What was the question again? Because I was like, what do you mean it's good? One more time, just the general version of it.
No, I don't even have a question. I think ESL, I don't feel like the continuation of this pro league where all the teams have to be forced into Europe into one big league, I don't think that is good for the future health of their pro league. I do think the Riot system of a North American league, a European league, and an Asian league, which then funnel into like a championship or the LAN event, is a pretty solid plan, and that it does allow the other regions to develop. I mean, I know Pro ESL does all this for a certain reason, but with the Malta contract ending, right? Does it end next year, or is it this
Yeah,
year?
but I think EliGE kind of already answered it, right? It's not that it wouldn't even be a good thing
Well,
to
ESL
do.
can.
No,
ESL
they
can
can't
do it.
though. No, they can't because of exactly what he described. ESL can't do it because if PGL just gives, first off, you would already have to I think they'd have to basically announce it very soon, if not already submitted it to Valve. If PGL or somebody just has an event that you just go for like a weekend for millions of dollars, why would you ever subscribe to playing in a pro league form? Like the format that pro league is currently running is dead. Like you're not going to do that next year because it's not worth it. Like you can just go to another event where you're going to get more prize money, you're going to contribute and play other teams and then be done. You might even, the time that current pro league runs, you might be able to play 2 tournaments potentially in a pro, for the pro league format that they run right now. And there isn't really like a shorter format. I don't even think that they could run that would make sense for there to be a longer season league, you know? And
The way that they can do it is just by the revenue share, like just them, being like, okay, if you come to the pro league, then we'll give this percentage more of like the rev share to the teams that not only do the rev or that come to pro league, but also that come to X amount of tournaments. And I that might even already be a thing. I honestly don't know.
yeah, maybe, but I just think that's why it's going to be hard, Sasha, there's going to be so many tournaments and so much opportunity that we're going to have shorter formats. These tournaments are just going to be ripping off tournaments left and right, dropping as much prize pool as they can to attract the biggest teams. And that's going to be it. We're not going to have like this 3-week long format. I wonder if even something like Cologne is, I don't think anybody's going to skip Cologne. I don't want to say that. Like, I don't want anybody to think I'm like insane.
Shortened?
They could.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what I was gonna say is think of how long Cologne runs is because you have the play-ins, then you have groups, then you have playoffs. It actually runs for a long period of time, and I actually like that format. I do want to say, like, I enjoy it a lot. It's a lot of fun to watch. But if you're one of these top teams, like, depending on who runs a tournament, when and where, you might go play 2 tournaments the time it takes to play in Cologne, which would benefit you not only more in prize money, but you might benefit more in Valve's ranking system to not participate in something that's longer format.
Yeah, I think it's just going to depend on how the agreements for rev share between all the tournament organizers is going to go. I think that teams will probably just be like, okay, we're going to be Star Ladder and PGL, and then another team's going to be like, okay, we'll just be ESL and Blast. I'm assuming that that's probably what teams are going to do. Honestly, I have no idea. I think that even all the teams and TOs are still trying to iron it out for next year. Like, I think all the dates are set, but in terms of like a rev split stuff, I think that might still be up in the air. But honestly, I don't know.
Yeah. I think like it's just a wait and see. You know, glass half full. I'm hoping that's why we're not getting updates. Is Valve is sitting there dealing with a bunch of different people to basically, they're like, yeah, okay, you got a question for me? We'll answer that. This is how we're doing this. That's what I'm praying why updates have slowed and things just kind of feel like they've stagnated a bit with CS2 is they're just so focused on rolling out a brand new set of tournament rules and keeping all of this streamlined and working that it slipped through the cracks. That's what I'm hoping for anyway.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I doubt it though.
Yeah, it's not looking good. But how you feeling, Slash? You got any more topics or you want to wrap it up here, you think?
Well, we actually didn't talk about your first matchup, which is against M80. Are you feeling better that it is an opponent that you know quite well and it was with the inter-region, or would you have liked to face maybe a European Asian team to start right off?
I mean, honestly, we don't really like know them that well. Like we know them personally, but we don't know them like that well. Like I was kind of saying before, we don't really like play them that much. Even before this second half of the year started, we didn't really play them that much. I've pretty much just been on the same schedule that I was on Liquid before, where if you are like the best NA team, then you're just like the consequences of being the best NA team is that you're never in NA. Like that's pretty much how it is. Like you're just gonna be like in EU for a bunch of tournaments, boot camping as much as possible. So we never even really played them that much. And even just looking at them, it's kind of hard because if you look at like some of their games that they played recently, the teams that they play are so not even close to their skill level that a lot of their demos are kind of useless. Like they're just like farming just these guys that just can't even shoot back, or they don't even, like,
Plumbers, this guy right
Yes.
here, right here.
it's dentist flom. But it's sometimes it's just kind of hard to get like good info from demo. Like you can't really get good info from stuff like that. So if I was to pick a preference, I would have wanted a team that I can prep better for. But I mean, I still feel good about the match.
Yeah, nice.
If you get past them, would you rather see Fnatic or Astralis?
I'd probably say Astralis just because I don't like Fnatic's map pool. But yeah, I'd probably say Astralis for the map pool.
Yeah. How do you feel about Astralis as a team? That's where I think that's a good one to wrap on. You feel like the device IGL thing is kind of starting to unravel a bit? Like it's not.
Yeah, I think that, well, it's hard because when I'm a competitor, dude, like I feel like people are always just ready to like fucking click the clip button. and they're
No.
just
We're
like,
your scuffed. I'll just call him an idiot.
Like you
It's
saw
fine.
what you remember when EliGE said that Astralis sucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's why we bring you on, so we can clip. I'm the one clipping it.
Exactly.
And then they just lost. But
That's why I brought you in. Actually, please say this. Continue. Hold on. I'm the one clipping it. Go ahead.
I think that it is hard, like when you just turn into an IGL, like you have like this X amount of time where you can like use what you've done before, and you have a good feel of like the meta, all like the strats you're comfortable with, and what everyone's doing, you'd kind of know, right? But then as time progresses and 3, 4, 5 months go by, and you've had some games under your belts, like the scene has developed more, there's new strats, there's new meta changes that have happened, and you have to update all of this stuff, and that takes a lot of work. Like to be able to like continuously be updating the strat book and changing things constantly, that it requires a lot. So that's why I think there's always like a delay. Like when someone does become like an IGL, they go from like the fragging IGL that's like god tier while calling, and then it like slowly like gets worse like a little bit over time. And that's why you have to be really dedicated like when you do actually swap to becoming an IGL, because you have to know that that's coming. You have to know that like you're gonna have less individual time. You're gonna have less time to deathmatch, less time to do refrag, less time to aim train everything, and it takes a toll. And something will go down because of that. Either it's gonna be like the strats or like the gameplay of like the entire team will kind of just go down because you're not putting enough time into it, or your individual form will suffer because you're putting more time into the macro and everything like that. And that's just a long-winded version of me saying I think that they have gone a little bit worse since Device has turned into an IGL, because it's hard to keep up with that stuff. And I don't know, like I think that up IGLing is always really, really hard, but Fallen did make it work for like a super long time.
Yeah. No,
Pretty unique in that regard, though. Not many people can live up to.
Hey, James got his major. You better watch yourself. James got his major. But okay, yeah. I always feel like Astralis is struggling as well, not just because of the device, but it's easy to farm this clip and be like, they're frauds or something like that. But I just feel like Stalin and Yabby have been genuinely underwhelming for how much space they like not take, but basically they're supposed to be the guys and they're not the guys. And then you have Stare over there trying to pick up some pieces along with Bro. And actually, Bro's kind of impressed me individually, but
Bro's really good. I think he's super good. Even on Monty,
Yeah.
he was amazing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people undervalue him because he's always just stuck, like in these positions where it's all falling apart, and it's like, all right, good luck, buddy. So I think he's really good, but I just think that the Stalin and Yabi maneuver for Astralis has been incredibly underwhelming, and I think Device just felt this pressure to IGL because they had no other answers, and he either was convinced by Astralis or he convinced himself because he knew that there wasn't another choice at that point in time. So yeah, it's kind of wild to think. And I'm hoping that Device personally just says enough is enough and just goes back to opping, not because I even think he's a bad IGL, but I just think that him performing stronger individually will give them better results than whatever they're doing. Right. Like Stalin, full disrespect, Stalin, you kind of already suck right now. So if you just started IGLing, and let Device do what Device does more, the team will be in a much better position than where they're currently at. That is how I feel. They got the wrong IGL, not because he can't do it, but because he shouldn't, Yeah,
I agree with you. That's kind of what I was going with. I'm not saying that Device is a shit IGL, but it's you have Device. It's kind of like making Zywoo IGL. Why would you want Zywoo to IGL? That's how I feel about Device. Why would you want Device to IGL? If you're just having Device just doing a consistent 1.20 to 1.30, I'd feel like I'd want that instead. And I agree. I think that Stavin and Jabby haven't been as strong as they were on Heroic. On Heroic, they were really top tier riflers, especially Jabby. Stavin, of course, but Jabby was insane for the roles that he was playing. And when they made Device IGL, they were saying that they're going to be more comfortable in their roles. So I feel like they should be owning now, right? Because they're in the roles.
It's been the complete opposite. Yeah.
They're in the roles that they want. So I'm not sure exactly why it is. You can only really know that stuff if you're in the team or they say it. But they got what they want. So I don't know exactly why they're not playing as good.
Going along with thinking, are you impressed with how well Twist has done, relatively so far?
Kind of like what I was saying before. I think that you're gonna have to see in a couple months. I think that once you do the initial stuff and you have the meta and all the strats that you running, you're comfortable, you had all the individual training that you had from before. I think that it gets tested after a couple months, I think. As long as they're okay with that, you don't technically need Rust to be doing a 120 to 130 every game, how I kind of think about Device for Astralis, where I'm I'd need Device to be hitting those numbers every single game because he is a god. Rust doesn't need that, but I think it's natural for it to go down, just for the reasons that I said. I think it's just very hard to keep up the individual form when you have to put in so many hours to macro, continuously updating the strat books and studying the game and stuff like that.
I can't add fuck all to that. I'll be honest. That's pretty much how I feel. So it's just kind of yep, smile and wave. But yeah. Hit me up.
Well, we'll have to see in time. Okay, let's go to the final question because I really want to know. I've been thinking about this a lot. I think last week, Donk broke the very early CS2 kill record with 38 kills versus Wildcard. And with the change of MR12, the kill record and the amount of kills that are going to be within a game or a map or a series is going to be much lower than it used to be. Do either of you feel like the change in MR12 is going to screw up the historic nature of kill records, how many kills in a game, how many kills in a match, how many kills in a league, how many kills in a series, how many kills all time, just because of such a massive difference in rounds? Is this something to be worth worrying about?
It's kind of like when you were asking before when we were talking goats. I still think that this is unique in gaming where it's hard to sometimes have that conversation because you have different games, right? So I think
we've had 20 years of
No, don't say it because you're going to be wrong. Don't finish that sentence.
Okay, 1.6 was MR12 until
Well, don't forget MR9 CGS.
We're not.
I had
No.
to,
I was going to say we are not even counting CGS. Okay, that is out of our minds completely. We're ignoring CGS entirely. That era just never happened. Okay, Mo didn't win. I can't believe that all that shit even happened. No, we're forgetting all of that. Okay, 1.6 changed. I really can't remember the exact year. I feel like 2003.
You're
or
before my
4.
time there, so you're gonna have to be my.
It was relatively early on. I believe we've had almost 2 decades of MR15. So it's not like it has, and again, we're ignoring CGS completely. So we haven't exactly had, I hear what you're saying. The games are changing, the rules are changing, and this was a massive, change from Valve to make games shorter, probably for the average player and for the esports scene. But just in terms of like the statistics are now definitely for Counter-Strike 2 going to be much less stand out. Like, there's no way anyone is going to break a kill record for a map or a series in CS2 unless, insane things happen where it goes into 6 or 7 overtimes or whatever.
It's less sexy that you can't like go 1-to-1 on everything, sure, but I mean, it's the inevitability. Everything's kind of changing. There's going to be a third, or not a third, because they can't count to 3. There will be another Counter-Strike, right? And there will probably be different things in that too. Like, who knows? Maybe we have a new round. So I think like whenever you talk about like kill records, for me, the way I always think of things or like statistics specifically is they are relevant to the game. They're always tied to that specific game. I don't try to like compare them because even in Go, you have the 1.0 rating and the 2.0 rating from HLTV. Like that changed everything. People still cannot comprehend what Chris or Get Right was doing. They do not know, and that's okay because plumbers, like everybody's favorite. But like my point is it's always relative and tied to the game, and I think it will always be that way. And it'll, maybe it makes it a little bit hard statistically speaking, but things evolve and change, and MR12 doesn't take away from that. It's just what the rule set is right now. It's not taking away, and it definitely doesn't take away what Donk did. Holy shit. I was watching that game live. Also kind of shows what's so bad about Spirit. It took 38 kills in regulation for Spirit to beat Wildcard by 1 round, 13-11. Like, I mean, well, before it goes to overtime, but whatever. Like, that's kind of insane. Like that it had to come down to that just to win in that fashion. So Donk is an absolute animal. I don't think it devalues it because it's MR12. I don't think stats are gonna be really like a big focal point in that sense, like where people are trying to compare one to the other, because people just recognize that they're different, and that's just kind of how it has to be, because we'll get another Counter-Strike here and it'll all change again.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just relevant, like you were saying. I completely agree with everything you were saying. And just unrelated to just like the wild card part, guys, whenever you're playing against Spirit, just don't give Donk any of the ecos. As soon as he gets like a 3 or 4K on like round 3, you know what he's gonna be doing to you for the whole rest of the game. Like, you're just done. It's just over. As soon as I was watching that game, I was no way they're gonna win now.
Just run the other way.
Is that not placebo? Is that a real thing? Like, if he really gets the ecos, he is gonna dominate.
Okay, wait. True. If somebody hits their first 3 in a game, Slasher, are they more likely to hit their next one?
100%. Yeah, it's like
No.
It's like
oh my
quarter.
God!
Like
grow up!
No.
Look at you smirking! Look at you! You can't even say with a straight face.
Flip a quarter 4 times and it's heads. The 5th time it's got to be
the dopamine is the same in some ways. Eco kills maybe even feel better than gun round kills. Listen, you are getting activated on ecos. He is absolutely right.
The gush animation, like that just
yeah,
looks
man.
sick. I remember Shroud. Anyone remember Shroud? Like, as soon as Shroud got like 3 kills, dude, it's just over.
I remember a Shroud clip. Yeah, no, he's absolutely right. Ecos do matter. Who they go to matters. Also, if your teammate's having a bad game, give him the damn ecos so they can get involved. Except that one time I flashed for truck and he got 1-d'd and then we lost the eco run. But whatever. Like, yeah, getting people ecos to get into the game, or early on if they get them and you like basically feed them, yes, you are going to activate them. They're going to get the hot hand. And he's right. You give Donk 3 kills back-to-back rounds or 3 rounds in a row. He's going to keep that going on the gun round too. He's
100%.
feeling himself. Like, he will keep going.
Yeah, it feels like aimbots. Like he just got a lot of freebies. Like he's just gonna keep owning. I remember even we played Spirit like in like September or something for like Thunderpick before like before CS2, and the first thing I said was on second round. I'm like, okay, guys, let's just not give Donk any of the ecos. Like we cannot have this guy on fire. They end up going B on Anubis. We pushed through A, and Donk ran from E box all the way up B back to water to kill all of us. And then he got like 20 more kills for the rest of the game. I'm like, guys, like as soon as you see Donk's name in the kill feed, just run away. Just don't make him feel good. Like as soon as you let him feel good from those kills, it's over. There's just no
Everybody's
way.
just scattering when they see Donk in the kill feed.
Yeah.
I
wanted everyone to go left, right, up, down. Don't even give him anything.
Don't feed Donk. Just keep running.
And that's with any good player too. Like you give Zywoo or Device, me, like you're
NiKo,
done.
holy
no
shit!
way.
NiKo's like a very good one too. He can
Yeah, like-
activate whatever, but my god.
Yeah, like we actually just played a scrim against G2. Monacy hits the nastiest ace probably ever. It probably would have been all over Reddit. And then the second round, he gets like another 4 kills. I thought this guy was about to get 40 kills on us for the whole scrim. I'm like, thank God that didn't happen. But it's a concern. It's a concern.
All right, perfect.
Well, you know what? Hopefully you will be that guy. We will be seeing tomorrow. I will be watching
I
you
hope so.
after you win pistol.
If I
better
get
run
more
it
kills
down.
on anti-eco, that's gonna be nice.
I have
Please.
to admit, I'm more concerned about you losing the anti-eco than you getting the kills.
Okay, hey,
We're gonna
don't
be winning
put
the anti-ecos. Don't worry.
that in his head, Slasher. You're fucked up. He's never gonna talk with us again.
What are you putting in his head? I've already watched it like 20 times already. You cannot be any more in your head. No, you got this. You got this. You are going to bring us to promised land. You're going to win North America a pro league. I feel like for the first has NA ever won pro league?
Well,
Yeah,
you know,
it's kinda
I'll let John
combining.
answer that one. Yeah, I'll let John answer
We
that.
won in 2019. Yeah,
That was yeah.
Montpellier. We won that one.
Yeah,
That felt
so,
good. It was in
yeah.
France as well against G2, the home crowd. So that felt nice.
Optic season 2 as well. Oh yeah, Optic. Holy crap!
Optics.
All right.
Oh wow.
I'm gonna wrap up Slasher here though, because he will give it another topic. So I'm gonna cut him off here.
That was it.
So yeah, thank you, John. I appreciate you hopping on.
No problem.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate it, man. Good luck
Fun.
tomorrow. I know it's late
Thank
over
you.
there. Get some sleep. Take it easy, bro.
Yes, sir. All right. I'll see you guys later. Peace.
All right,
later.
good luck, man.
You don't know this, but John actually is usually the latest one to wake up, but he's also the longest one to stay in the practice room. So that's why he actually is up. Like it's not this isn't weird. We're not breaking
Okay,
his routine.
interesting.
Yeah. He's usually I learned this kind of recently. He's always holding it down. So he's always the last one in there. But he likes his sleep and he likes to stay up a little bit later. So that's kind of his normal routine.
Respect that. The bald, bold buff. And the beautiful.
See, you see what he said in chat? I'm also a late night gamer. Don't worry, I'll probably be up another 3 to 4 hours anyway. See?
What a gamer. That's a true
Yeah.
gamer.
All right, that's enough of you being on the screen. I'm gonna wrap it up there because I gotta go get my fat ass in the gym. Good job as
Okay.
always, bro. It was fun. Let's try not to get you
GGs.
into the hospital with eye infections again. You know, and we'll start planning out the next one.
Yeah. Next Monday. So
Your
the
eye
pl-
looks
the
great,
plan
by the way.
is- Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure if you're being sarcastic or not. The plan for all you in chat is to hopefully do it on Sundays, which would be right after Pro League finishes, and that would give us an extra day before the next,
Yeah.
for the playoffs, and then the next groups of Pro League. So hopefully, but it is NFL every Sunday.
Sunday. You don't want to compete with the NFL, dude? Yeah.
You know, I actually think that if in some crazy way, esports doesn't even want to compete with the NFL. Like,
All right, Adam. On that note, we'll figure it out. I'm gonna get out of here for now. It was good.
All right, GGs.
Good yap sesh. Yeah. GG's.